while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership. We will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Hello and welcome, I'm Ananya Datta and you're watching Race to Power with me as always. Let's start talking politics. Georgia has been rocked by unrest night after night. The political instability is being closely watched by Brussels as well as Moscow. We tell you what comes next. Over in the United States, the current president has pardoned his son even after publicly suggesting against it. And the incoming president is busy building the richest cabinet in US history. We get your well-rounded report. Let's start this broadcast from Georgia. The country is witnessing fierce protests after the government suspended talks to join the European Union. Police fired tear gas and water cannons at demonstrators on fourth straight day of protests. Meanwhile, the country's Prime Minister has rebuffed calls for new elections. On Sunday evening, protesters launched fireworks at the police lines near the Georgian parliament. Police responded by dousing the crowd with water cannons from trucks mobilized around the Rustaveli Avenue. Protesters rallied in Georgia's capital for a fourth straight night. After gathering in Tbilisi's central Rustaveli Avenue, Georgian media reported protests in at least 8 cities and towns. Demonstrators have blocked roads in the country's main commercial port in the Black Sea city of Poti. In Kashuri town, agitators threw eggs at the ruling party's office and tore down the party's flag. The country's interior ministry said that over 150 people have been arrested so far. Georgian ambassadors to Bulgaria, Netherlands and Italy have all resigned their posts to join a growing chorus of voices against the government's pro-Russian stance. Over 160 Georgian diplomats have issued a joint statement denouncing the government's decision to halt EU accession talks. Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania jointly agreed to impose sanctions against quote-unquote those who suppressed legitimate protests across the country. Remember, the trouble started with this statement by Georgian Prime Minister halting EU talks.
დღეს მივიღეთ გადაწყვეტილება 2028 წლის ბოლომდე დღის რიგში არ დავაყენოთ ევროკავშირთან მოლაპარაკებების გახსნის საკითხი. ასევე 2028 წლის ბოლომდე უარს ვამბობთ ყოველგვარ საბიუჯეტო გრანტზე ევროკავშირის მხრიდან. 2028 წლის ბოლო არის ის დრო, როდესაც საქართველო იქნება ეკონომიკური თვალსაზრისით სათანადოდ მომზადებული, რათა გახსნას მოლაპარაკებები 2030 წელს ევროკავშირში გასაწევრიანებლად.
The statement suspended the negotiations to join the European Union, marked yet another chapter in the debate over Georgia's identity. Since 2012, the Georgian Dream Party has been in power. Critics accuse the party of trying to move the country away from the EU and closer to Russia. The Georgian Dream Party claimed victory in last month's elections, but opposition MPs boycotted the new parliament, alleging fraud. Just on Thursday, the European Parliament backed a resolution calling the election the latest stage in Georgia's quote-unquote worsening democratic crisis, while holding the ruling party fully responsible. The EU also expressed concerns about reports of voter intimidation, vote buying and manipulation and harassment of observers. Following the protests, however, the Georgian Prime Minister toned down his comments, stating that he is committed to the European integration of Georgia.
The response is very clear. So we have not suspended anything related to the European integration. It's just a lie. And there are the opposition leaders, there are the media outlets linked with the opposition who are just lying to these people. But nobody has suspended the European integration of Georgia. We are very much committed to the European integration.
Let's focus on the United States now. President Joe Biden has issued a full and unconditional pardon for his son, Hunter Biden. The announcement comes just days before Hunter was due to face sentencing for gun crime and tax-related offenses. Biden justified pardoning Hunter by alleging that his son was being prosecuted selectively and unfairly. He went on to add that he hoped Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. However, Biden had previously said that he wouldn't pardon his son.
With regard to the question regarding the family, I'm extremely proud of my son Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Hunter Biden responded to his pardon, stating that he has admitted and taken responsibility for his mistakes, which has been exploited as political sport. He expressed gratitude for his family's support. Biden Jr. also emphasized his focus on moving forward. Hunter Biden's legal troubles stem from several convictions, including a guilty plea to 9 tax offenses linked to millions in unpaid taxes. He also faced charges related to illegal purchase of a firearm, a case that sparked public interest due to Hunter's struggles with addictions. The pardon prevents Hunter from being sentenced for charges related to both cases, which had threatened to send him to prison. His sentencing hearings, set for mid-December, have now all been cancelled. US President-elect Donald Trump slammed the decision as quote-unquote abuse and miscarriage of justice. On his social media platform, Trump questioned the move and asked whether the pardon included J6 hostages, referring to the people jailed in the Capitol riots case.
And swatting attempts, Mr. President.
And to get us in perspective on this story, Stephen Golub is joining us on this broadcast as a political analyst and lawyer. Mr. Golub, good to see you on WION.
Well, pardon the pun, but what Joe Biden did is ethically and politically unpardonable. He really has done harm at a very bad time in U.S. history to the rule of law and to the notion of justice here. It's a particularly bad time because Donald Trump is coming into office. He's going to try to undermine the rule of law here in many ways, including by Trump pardoning the January 6th insurrectionists who violently seized the U.S. Capitol 4 years ago and who harmed and whose actions harmed and ultimately led to the deaths of police officers afterwards. So Trump is going to do what he's going to do regardless. He did not need this Hunter Biden pardon to go ahead with his efforts to undermine justice and to pardon the insurrectionists and others. But this provides him an additional political excuse to do it, to try to persuade people in the middle of the American political spectrum that, look, I, Donald Trump, can pardon anyone because, look, Joe Biden pardoned his own son. Now, just briefly, there are a couple of other layers to this. One is that it's arguable that if Hunter Biden were not Joe Biden's son, he would not have been prosecuted for these crimes. He would have paid his fines and not been facing the threat of going to jail for this. So that's one matter. On the other hand, Hunter Biden dug his own grave, in a sense, through some very unethical actions by exploiting his father's name, exploiting his father by bringing his father in on phone calls when Hunter Biden was seeking and getting consulting contracts. Nothing illegal in that itself, but it led to his amassing funds that in turn allowed him he used to evade paying taxes and led to one of the major charges he faced. So it's a complicated situation in some ways. But as I said, the bottom line is that it's a sad day for U.S. justice. It's a sad day for Joe Biden's legacy. And the ultimate beneficiary of this will actually be Donald Trump.
Mr. Golub, it's interesting how you say that, how you're connecting the past, the present, and the future, given what Donald Trump is going to do. But I want to go to a point you made towards the beginning of what you're saying. Donald Trump's pardoning of the Jan 6th rioters has nothing to do with Joe Biden pardoning his son. As you correctly mentioned, or rightly predicted, that it doesn't really depend on Joe Biden's pardoning of Hunter Biden. But given the political optics of it, looking at it from a zoomed out lens of Republicans and Democrats, what do you make of that?
Well, that's exactly it. In a narrow sense, Donald Trump, as I said, is going to go ahead and pardon many or maybe even all of the January 6th insurrectionists and take other actions that undermine or try to undermine the rule of law anyway. He didn't need Joe Biden's actions, the pardon here, to do that, but it makes it easier for him and his allies to argue to the American public and to maybe persuade some Americans that, look, this is something presidents do anyway. This is something Joe Biden did. He pardoned his own son. It deepens the very cynicism about the U.S. justice system, or skepticism at the very least, that many Americans feel that Donald Trump has fueled. So he benefits. The justice system and Joe Biden's legacy really suffer from this. And this, unfortunately, comes at a time on top of Joe Biden's legacy already being tarnished by the fact that he held on for so long in refusing to step back from running for president, running for re-election, I should say, which ultimately might have contributed to the Democrats' loss. Not the only factor at all, but might well have contributed to Kamala Harris's or any Democratic nominee's loss. Right. The fact that Joe Biden held on so long in that regard.
All right, Mr. Golub, thank you so much for all your insights. Good to speak to you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, speaking of US President-elect, Donald Trump's campaign pledged to be the champion for working-class Americans, to rescue the middle class, so to speak. As it turns out, his incoming administration is flush with some of the richest people in America and the world. It will be the richest American cabinet ever, in fact. Wall Street figures and billionaires on this list include some of America's richest people. Their combined net worth adds up to more than $10.7 billion. This is assuming all the nominees are approved in the Senate, including the world's wealthiest person, that's Elon Musk, and other members of Trump 2.0 who don't really need Senate confirmations. And total figure spirals into the stratosphere, something like $344 billion. That's larger than the GDP of 169 dozen countries. Now, Trump himself is said to become the wealthiest US president in history. He has an estimated net worth of $5.6 billion. This is mostly thanks to the name stock shares he owns of Trump Media and Technology Group that have boomed in the last 7 months. More on the billionaires list, Linda McMahon, who has been tapped to lead the Department of Education, is a professional wrestling mogul, the co-founder of World Wrestling Entertainment along with her husband. Together, they share a net worth of $2.5 billion. Howard Lutnick, named to be his Secretary of Commerce, is the head of brokerage and investment bank Cantor Fitzgerald. Lutnick's net worth is $1.5 billion, and this is according to Bloomberg. Doug Burgum, picked to head the Department of the Interior, is the current governor of North Dakota and a former executive of Great Plains Software. He is worth an estimated $1.1 billion. All right, now they're just the ones whose net worth is known. We have excluded money manager Scott Bessent and special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. After this, if you include the millionaires, the figure zooms up even higher. Topping the billionaires list in Trump 2.0, of course, is the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who has been tapped to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. That's still not officially part of the cabinet. His net worth is $332.6 billion. Of course, the richest man in the entire world. Next up, Vivek Ramaswamy, who co-heads the Department of Government Efficiency, is a biotech entrepreneur with a net worth of $1.1 billion. By comparison, President Joe Biden's cabinet total net worth was about $118 million, and Trump's first cabinet total net worth was about $6.2 billion. Prior to Trump, former President Barack Obama's cabinet net worth was about $2.8 billion. That was his second term. Now, the global economic stage is heating up as President-elect Donald Trump issues a stark warning to BRICS nations. Trump has threatened to impose a 100% tariff on these nations if they develop a common BRICS currency or back any alternative to the US dollar. This ultimatum follows the BRICS summit in Kazan, where the bloc discussed boosting non-dollar transactions through initiatives like the BRICS Cross-Border Payments Initiative. While some nations pushed for alternatives, Russian President Vladimir Putin downplayed immediate plans for a unified currency, citing the complexity of the aligning fiscal and monetary policies among the bloc's diverse economies. Now, for India, this poses a significant dilemma. Bilateral trade between India and the US reached a record $120 billion in financial year of 24. Sectors such as tech services, pharmaceuticals and textiles, key contributors to India's exports to the US, stand to lose competitiveness if Donald Trump enforces these tariffs that he's talking about. Meanwhile, a think tank, the Global Trade Research Institute, has weighed in on Trump's tariff threats, calling it quote-unquote unrealistic and more symbolic than practical. They argue that such tariffs would ultimately harm American consumers by increasing import prices, disrupting global trade, and inviting retaliation from key trading partners. BRICS, which accounts for 31.5% of global GDP and represents over 40% of the world's population, has been expanding its influence by adding countries like the UAE and Ethiopia to its fold. However, the bloc's push for non-dollar transactions and localized banking systems is viewed by Trump as a direct challenge to the US dollar's dominance in global trade. With Trump set to return to the White House, the global economic order faces renewed turbulence. Now, what comes next is something we'll only know this January. Let's now shift focus to Ireland. The country's two dominant centre-right parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, are set to retain power in the country after vote counting in the European Union members' general election resumed on Sunday. With 162 out of the 174 seats in the lower chamber of the parliament decided, the two centre-right parties are well ahead of the main opposition party, which is the left-wing nationalist Sinn Féin party. Fianna Fáil has taken 43 seats, Fine Gael has won 36, leftist Sinn Féin has secured 36 seats. To form a majority, a party or a coalition requires 88 seats. Both the centre-right parties have repeatedly ruled out entering a coalition with the main opposition Sinn Féin party. In terms of vote share and declared results, Fianna Fáil, led by the experienced Michel Martin, had the largest chunk with nearly 22%. Fine Gael, whose leader Simone Harris is the outgoing Prime Minister, was running second with nearly 21%, while Sinn Féin was in third with 19%. During the last parliamentary term, the role of the Prime Minister rotated between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael leaders. The final seat numbers, which will not be confirmed until later this week, will determine whether Fine Gael leader Simone Harris or the Fianna Fáil leader Michel Martin will take the role under a similar rotation arrangement. The new parliament is due to sit for the first time in December 18th, but with coalition talks looming, a new government might not be formed until next year. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was in Ukraine visiting Kiev for the very first time in nearly 2.5 years. He had last come shortly after the war began. It was a surprise visit, and the timing itself raises some speculations on the actual purpose. On the face of it, the visit is an outreach and an assurance of support to Ukraine. Scholz and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reviewed military drones manufactured by Ukrainian and German producers at an exhibition center. Use of German technology in Ukrainian drones was the focus. Scholz unveiled 650 million euros, that's about $680 million of new military aid for Kiev. He assured also that Berlin would remain Ukraine's biggest backer in Europe at a volatile moment in the war. Scholz said, and I'm quoting, "Ukraine can rely on Germany. We say what we do what we say." Not to be missed, however, is the fact that the visit comes amid multiple domestic and geopolitical developments around the Russia-Ukraine war. There are rising fears about the future as Donald Trump returns to the White House this January. There's concern that Germany will be left to take on a far bigger share of the war effort if Trump carries out his threat to reduce support for Kiev. Then Scholz's visit comes as he starts his own election campaign at home. His government has collapsed and he faces a tough battle for re-election at a snap vote in February. Scholz's record on supporting Ukraine has been under secure scrutiny. On one hand, there are voters who want him to do more to help Kiev. On the other, a section of voters want Germany to pull back from sending weapons to Ukraine. Germany had refused Taurus cruise missiles for Ukraine, something which the Scholz opposition in Germany has been pushing for. Is he looking to navigate his own constituency is the question. Just last month, Scholz also became Ukraine's first ally to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin, supposedly to urge negotiations. The call had angered Kiev, as it was seen as weakening Europe's attempt to isolate the Russian president. One can't help but raise the question, is Scholz also trying to play both sides, Ukraine as well as Russia? Let's now take a look at what else is making headlines in the world of elections as well as politics. Iceland's centre-left Social Democratic Alliance has come out on top in snap elections triggered by the collapse of a 7-year coalition, according to final results announced by state broadcaster RÚ. The party secured 15 seats in the 63-seat parliament with 20.8% of the votes. Icelanders voted on Saturday after disagreements over immigration, energy policy and the economy. And it forced the Prime Minister to pull the plug on his coalition government and call for early elections. Namibia's main opposition party, Independent Patriots for Change, has rejected this week's general election results, citing voting delays and logistical issues. IPC's presidential candidate claimed on Saturday that there were glaring and undeniable electoral malpractice. And with that, we're wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Ananya Datta. Goodbye.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership. We will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
Know more, understand better, think ahead.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello there and welcome back. You are watching WION World as One. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's time for Fine Print. I'm Eric Njoka. The headlines. Presidents of Russia and Iran pledged support to Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad. Vladimir Putin and Masoud Pezeshkian discussed support to what they call Syria's legitimate authorities to restore constitutional order and territorial sovereignty. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz alleges Putin wants people to freeze in Ukraine, says Russia must not impose dictated peace on Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin sanctions a massive $126 billion defense budget for 2025, marks a record 32.5% of the nation's total government spending. Allocation highlights Moscow's escalating military focus amid war in Ukraine. Chinese and German foreign ministers hold bilaterals in Beijing, reiterate Germany's commitment to the One China principle and support for China's role in addressing climate change. Georgian Prime Minister refuses negotiations with opposition amid protests, says country will make maximum efforts to join the EU. Fiorentina midfielder Eduardo Bovi awake and alert after collapsing on the pitch during his side's Serie A match against Inter Milan. Wars and regional tensions have fueled the sales of the world's 100 biggest defense equipment makers. a leading think tank